Inspirators, it's Inspiring Vanessa here and welcome back to another exciting interview for you all. First off, I just want to say I hope you all are staying safe during this COVID-19 pandemic, and hopefully you guys have been enjoying these interviews and live streams I've been doing recently, just to kind of shed a little bit of light on some extraordinary people and to share a bit of positivity. So today I'm going to be interviewing Ishaan Shah, and he is an anti-slavery advocate and podcast host. He also does a lot of other things, and he's only 16 years old. So it's very exciting to kind of hear about what he does, and hopefully it will inspire you guys today. So I'm going to invite Ishaan on, and then we can just get straight into this interview. So I'm just going to click on here. And if you guys want me to interview you, message me on Instagram as well. If you guys like to be interviewed. Hi!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for coming on anyways. So, first of all, how's quarantine going?
It's going well, thank you. It's just getting used to the routine of, not being able to see your friends and staying at home and trying to stay motivated as well, especially when you've got schoolwork going on. So, yeah, it's going well, thank you. How about for you?
It's been kind of okay for me because obviously I have two different routines before the COVID-19 pandemic. So now it's kind of like having to juggle speaking on like social media and also schoolwork at the same time. But I'm getting into it, and next week is also half term, so I can have like a week to relax, you can say, and a bit of a break off of schoolwork. But first of all, can you introduce yourself to those who don't know who you are?
Sure. So I'm Ishaan Shah. I'm 16 years old, and I'm an anti-slavery advocate, a conservationist, feminist, writer, and podcaster.
And the first question kind of leaves me when you were just introducing yourself. How did you become an advocate for anti-slavery, and why do you think it's important to raise awareness of that topic?
Yeah, so in 2016, I watched a documentary about child trafficking and modern day slavery. And I saw how children and adults across the world are being exploited for labour. And then I found out that it's actually existing in the UK right on our doorsteps and in the clothes we wear and in the foods we eat. And so the week after, I went into school and I asked all 156 children in my year if they knew slavery still existed. And all of them said no. And so that really shocked me. And so I knew that from that moment, I had to raise awareness. And then from there, my organisation and website was born.
Ooh. I think you kind of froze in a minute. Can you just repeat your last sentence? So just for if it broke off for anybody else as well.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. I went into school and none of the 156 children in my year knew that slavery still existed. And so I created Stolen Dreams UK, which is my organisation, and it raises awareness to young people, especially about modern slavery and human trafficking.
That is fantastic. So well done for you as well to just kind of take charge and take action into something that you kind of saw was a problem and something that kind of needs to be raised, or more awareness should be raised around that as well. Because like when I first met you at the Global Youth Awards, like, I wasn't even aware myself that slavery kind of still existed in a different form, you can say, or in modern day ages. So I think it's really powerful what you're doing as well and kind of sharing that message across. So the second question I have for you, you're very welcome. The second question I have for you is, what message do you want to share through what you do? Because you do a lot of different things, but like, what is the main message you kind of want to share to those who follow your content?
So it's really just to find your passion in life and really be of service to others. I think that's my key message across all of my posts that I do, because as you said, I do a lot of posts regarding anti-slavery and conservation and gender equality as well. So I think it's just encouraging young people to start unconventional projects and to really, if you have a passion, go for it and do what you believe in, really.
That is so important. I totally agree with you on that one. And what kind of inspired you to start making content on social media, especially? Do you think it's because you can kind of reach a broader audience, or is it just because everyone was on social media kind of at the time when you first discovered this?
Yeah, so the issue of slavery, when I was researching online, the information was quite harrowing and it was quite difficult and challenging for young people to understand. And at the time, I was only 13 and I was struggling. And so when I found out that this was an issue that's affecting us, because we as kids are also at risk of being trafficked online and on social media. And so I thought the best way to engage young people in this issue is to use social media and to leverage social media for social good. I think that's really important because social media, especially now when we're spending a lot of time online, traffickers are taking advantage of that. And I think using social media for good and promoting and inspiring people and helping others, I think that's really important. And that's why I chose to create a website and focus all my communications online.
I think it's just so powerful what you just said. I think it just opened a lot of people's eyes up, just kind of thinking, well, actually, even if I am online following positive people, it still does make an impact, because as you were saying, traffickers are still kind of taking advantage of that. So thank you for sharing that, by the way, as well, because I personally didn't know that before until you just said it. So I'm learning new things on this interview as well. So thank you for that. The next question I kind of have is just by curiosity for me, and it could also shed some light on how you deal with like schoolwork and what you do as well. But do you go to like public school, or are you homeschooled?
So I go to a private school at the moment, and I think when people always ask me how do I juggle my social impact work and schoolwork and relaxation, I think the important thing to remember is that when you find your passion in life, that sort of becomes your life, if you know what I mean, and your relaxation time becomes doing what you're passionate about. And so whether that's blogging online or reading books or reading articles about human trafficking, I think that's my relaxation, and that's how I managed to juggle it, find that perfect balance between doing what I love to do and then schoolwork as well.
Would you say like one of the key factors, you need to be very organized? Because I kind of see that for myself as well. I have a lot of to-do lists that I have, like a lot of notepads, so you kind of have to structure out your day as well. And how have your how have your friends or like your peers around you kind of reacted towards what you do?
So that's one of the things that keeps me doing what I do, because when I go into schools and I talk to younger children especially, so I speak to kids from ages 7 to 18. And so when I speak to those 7-year-olds, for example, none of them are aware that slavery still exists. So at first, when I tell them, they're quite shocked. But after that, they are hungry to change this. They are hungry to take action. And I get messages from parents and emails from teachers saying that their kids have told them to stop buying from Cadbury's, for example, because Cadbury's using child slavery. And they've written to their local government representatives to see what they're doing to tackle slavery. And I think that action, even from such a young age, really inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing, and it's really rewarding.
That is amazing. So it's kind of like you go to the school, you tell them about it. At first they're shocked, and then they kind of get educated on the topic, and then they want to do something as well. So in a way, you're kind of empowering them, or like encouraging them to make a change, which I think is super powerful as well. So for those who obviously don't know, that Cadbury does enforce child labor, isn't it? Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Then we can choose to boycott that. I think that's the correct term to use.
Definitely,
So I think what you're kind of talking about, especially at your age, I think is really powerful. So again, well done to you for kind of doing what you're doing, because I think it's going to make a massive impact and influence for everybody else who kind of knows.
I'm just seeing in the comments here, someone just Nike. So yeah, Nike and Zara, H&M, all of these high street fast fashion brands, most of them are all using some form of forced labor or modern slavery. And yeah, just even on their Instagram posts, like on Zara's Instagram post, for example, or Cadbury's Instagram post, if you comment on there saying, oh, please tell us how much your workers are paid per piece you produce, that really engages people who are looking at their posts and makes them aware that actually our high street brands, you know, that we're buying from every day, they have slavery in them.
That is insane. I didn't even know that for myself. Are there any like brands that you support that kind of like reinforce your message rather than kind of the opposite?
Yeah, so there's one called Know the Origin, and they do clothing, bed sheets, toothbrushes, all sorts of products, and they're all slavery free, which is really cool. But in terms of chocolate, I'm quite fussy with what chocolates I like and what chocolates I don't like. And Tony's chocolate is available across the UK and in Ireland and Scotland as well. They do amazing slavery chocolate, and so that's a great alternative. If you're going to boycott Cadbury's, then go for Tony's chocolate.
That is amazing. Before you kind of learn about that slavery kind of still existed in the 21st century, you can say, have you like bought from any brands that still had like child labour like productions? And if so, how did you kind of react to that and change your routine, or to like change your perspective towards what you were buying?
So unfortunately, ethical clothing nowadays is quite expensive, and there are a lot of people who can't afford ethical clothing, and that's something that I can't afford either, ethical clothing. And so when I tell people that these companies have slavery in them, I don't want them to feel bad that they can't then switch to ethical clothing. But one of the key messages I do give to people, and especially children, is that we're always buying new clothes, and that's helping the fast fashion industry. So I think what you can do if you want to help slavery but not buy ethical because you can't afford it, then when you buy a piece of clothing, really cherish that clothing, because it's not machines that have made that piece of clothing. People, children have made that clothing. And so rather than, wearing it once and then never wearing again, or wearing it once and then getting it, ripped or something and having to throw it away, I think really cherishing each item of clothing, buying secondhand even really helps. So yeah, just don't want to make people feel bad about not buying ethical clothing, but also just be considerate towards, people made those clothes.
We need to have that good balance. And I just find it so fascinating how it's kind of like young people, or like a big majority of the younger generation, we are basically the ones, or our parents are the ones buying us all these different clothing items, probably just because everybody else is having them, just because we go with the clothing trends or whatever it is that we're kind of looking at on social media these days. But then at the same time, we are still those people who want to make a change as well. So I think for any adults who are watching this this interview, maybe on replay or even now, maybe we should start changing the perspective of young people, because even though there are amazing ambassadors and speakers on social media, or just advocates like yourself as well, Ishaan, sometimes young people don't have this great perspective or this great view or stereotype. So I think we should decide to change that, just because what you were saying just kind of changed my perspective a little bit as well. So that is really interesting to me anyways. But I know you kind of talked about this anyway, but what keeps you motivated to keep moving forward in what you do?
I think, again, seeing that change and that desire to change that young people do, because ultimately we're the generation of the future. So our actions today will affect the generations to come. And so when I see kids who are willing to, change their ways, and even 7-year-olds asking me about international law and why can't, there be a United Nations envoy that goes around to all these different countries and makes sure slavery is not happening. They're already starting to create solutions towards ending, such big, major global issues. I think that really motivates me, inspires me to keep going. Those type of kids and the people who are passionate about and want to create change, they really inspire me.
That is incredible, Ishaan. So the next question I do have for you is, you actually interviewed me on your podcast, which is Hand Gel for Humanity. I love the title, by the way.
Thank
it
you.
just kind of teaches you very clear as well. I love the title. So what inspired you to make that podcast? Is it just kind of about the COVID-19 pandemic and the idea kind of came to mind, or were you thinking about making a podcast even before we all went on lockdown?
So I've been wanting to do a podcast for a couple of years now, but I've just never got around to having the time to do it. And I didn't realize how much work it was until I actually started it. It's a lot of work with editing and recording and those sort of things. But whilst I was sitting here during lockdown, I thought, well, I wanted to do a podcast, and there are a lot of people, a lot of young people at home feeling probably quite lonely. And also during this time, you've got to take care of our mental health. And so I thought, why not create a podcast that sort of talks around different topics around mental health, that uplift people, things like body image, goal-getting, people like you who are inspiring other people. I think that's really important, to feel inspired and keep positive during these times and surround ourselves with that positivity. And so from there, I just spontaneously, randomly on the day decided to create a podcast.
I mean, I love how the idea came about as well. And this is also Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yes,
so would you say that lockdown is going to negatively impact young people more than kind of day-to-day different like problems that we went through before lockdown? Or how do you think young people can kind of help their mental health, especially during these times, if they don't really know who to speak to in their household?
I think lockdown is just another challenge in life. It's like another hurdle that we have to, overcome. And I think my key message in terms of mental health to the young people listening today is to surround yourself with as much positivity and do the things that you enjoy and that you find fun and that make you smile. Whether that means, using the unfollow button as your friend is something that I've been putting on my social media quite a lot, because, you don't have to follow certain people. And I really advise you to unfollow accounts that are making you feel unhappy or self-conscious or poor or negative about yourself, and follow accounts that, inspire you, accounts like yours. And It's Okay to Not Be Okay is a great account. Happy Not Perfect is another good one. There are loads of good news movement accounts out there on Instagram to follow, which I love. And I've been doing that as well. So I've been unfollowing different accounts and following new accounts. And it's really helped me on a day-to-day basis. You know, when I log onto Instagram, and I'm sure a lot of young people are doing that, you know, hundreds of times a day at this during this period. But it's really nice to open your account and then see something positive, and then that makes you smile for the rest of the day.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I just kind of came to mind a little shout out to the female lead. I don't know if you know of them, but they are a company, and they also created this hashtag, and it's called Disrupt Your Feed. So the kind of message behind it is to start following people who are going to make you feel empowered, because especially I think amongst girls or teenage girls, it's like we tend to follow a lot of people who almost make us more insecure about ourselves, even though that doesn't seem like the most smart thing to do, because obviously you don't want to make yourself feel worse about yourself, but it's just something that's kind of become an instinct or a normality in society, which isn't obviously the best thing that's happening. So shout out to the female lead as well. What you were saying, just kind of take out the toxic accounts, the negative accounts, and then just kind of exchange them with the positive ones. So if you don't follow Ishaan already, go and follow him. You can hear more of his content, and also listen to his podcast as well, so you can kind of feel more uplifted during lockdown. And the kind of final question I have for you.
Just going back to your point about insecurity and things, I think a lot of celebrities and accounts that sort of talk about diets and body image and things like that. Right now during lockdown, it's like this would have been the prime time to get young people and young adults to get their summer bodies. And obviously because of lockdown, because of distancing, that's not happening. And so there's a lot of content, a lot of adverts being targeted at young children about body image. And I think body image is not, I did a Q&A a few weeks ago, and I think body image is one of the questions that came up most, people feeling insecure about what they look like. And I think the main thing to sort of consider is that your body is your own, and you don't have to come out of lockdown, you know, losing, you know, weight or looking a certain way. Exactly, yeah. Just do what you have to do in order to survive. And then that's the advice given by the government, just survive. There's nothing to do with like body image. And if you are feeling insecure, I think, you know, look at your body in the mirror and just look at yourself and tell yourself, my body has done so much for me. I've got a nose that I can smell with, a mouth that I can taste with. You know, I've got legs that carry me from place to place. Just being grateful for every part of your body, because everyone is unique and everyone is extraordinary. You've got to remember that. And that it's sort of that notion that young people today are obsessed with perfection. And I think we all have to understand that perfection doesn't exist, so just let it go. And our imperfections and our vulnerabilities and our flaws, they're actually what make us unique and what make us extraordinary.
I mean, I totally agree with what you just said. Thank you for sharing that inspiration just now. And it is so true, because it feels like even on social media, you just kind of see numerous, you can say Instagram celebrities, Instagram baddies kind of faking their photos, and they're almost kind of encouraging this idea of perfection, which clearly isn't real, because it's all kind of done on our phones or seeing a different perspective. And I mean, what you were saying, I mean, for anybody who's trying to stay more positive, being grateful, having gratitude, especially during lockdown, and kind of having all this news and press about all the negativity that's happening in the world and all the kind of chaos that's happening, kind of focusing on the little things that you're grateful for is definitely going to make a massive difference to your whole month, to your whole day, to your whole week, whenever you're kind of thinking about what you're grateful for. So that is a massive thing that I kind of want to encourage more, especially to kind of stay positive. So the last question I kind of have for you is, what are you aiming to achieve in the future? Like, what is your next kind of long-term goal that you're working towards?
The future is quite uncertain at the moment, I think. But I think just working towards a world where we can, you know, tackling climate change is really important, because ultimately if we, you know, destroy our environment, there's not going to be a planet to live on. But I think, you know, taking care of human beings as a species, of all species, achieving gender equality and treating people fairly, so that things like slavery and human trafficking don't occur, and getting businesses to, you know, adopt ethical and fair business practices. I think that's the future, really. And I think after this lockdown situation, we're seeing a lot of things changing now, and hopefully those positive changes can continue. And if they do, then the world would definitely be a better place.
I totally agree. I think you're just kind of part of the hand gel for humanity, as your podcast kind of says it. Going on to your podcast, where can we listen to your podcast?
So at the moment it's on SoundCloud and YouTube. The YouTube page is Hand Gel for Humanity, the SoundCloud is the same, so you can listen to it on there. But an interesting story about the name, actually. My sister came up with a name, and then I was thinking whether I should use it or not. And we're also relying on hand gel, especially now, but
Yep.
even before the crisis,
Always have
everybody
sanitizer in your hands. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. We're also relying on hand gel. Yet hand gel only kills 99% or 99.9% of the bacteria. So we're all relying on this hand gel, but it's not perfect. That's the key thing to remember. Just like we're not perfect. And I think that was sort of the deeper meaning behind the name of my podcast, which was just something I thought I should share.
Yeah, I mean, that's super cool just to kind of think about that. I mean, I always love deeper meanings. That's also partly why I post a lot of quotes on my Instagram page. People kind of scroll through that. You can see a bunch of different quotes, but all the deeper meanings behind it is just kind of, that's what makes people more empowered, because anybody can read a sentence or read a quote from a massive figure, and if they don't understand it, then obviously it doesn't make that impact, doesn't make that difference. So the last thing I'm going to kind of ask you to share to those who are watching, what would be like your 3 tips or your 3 steps to kind of stay more positive during this COVID-19 pandemic?
So the first would definitely be to unfollow accounts that make you feel poor, negative, unhappy, self-conscious. The second is to, in terms of body image, just survive. If you want to snack, snack. If you don't want to snack, don't snack. If you want to lose weight, that's great, but don't put pressure on other people to lose weight. And my third tip would be, you don't have to come out of this global pandemic learning a new language or a new skill or launching a business or, making loads of money or whatever it may be. Do not put pressure on yourself to do more than simply try your best. Every morning, just wake up and say, today I'm going to try my best. And whether that's you actually getting out of your bed or whether that's you getting out of bed and then learning a new language, that's fine. But just don't put pressure on yourself to be a certain way or to learn new skills or do anything more than just try your best. Those are my top 3 tips.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today to this interview. I had a fantastic time speaking to you. I think you shared so much inspiration, and I think you educated me as well, but I think those who are watching as well. So thank you so much for kind of sharing a little bit about what you do. You're so welcome. Before we kind of finish off this interview, where can we find you on social media?
Yes, I'm on Twitter and Facebook at _Ishaan Shah. And then if you would like to follow my organization pages at Stolen Dreams UK on Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for kind of sharing your inspiration, and I hope you and your family will stay safe during this lockdown. Hopefully we can see each other again afterwards.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.